All right, welcome in. Hail to the podcast brought to you by Maize and Blue Review. We cover Michigan for the Rivals Network, which means you can find us at michigan.rivals.com. Busy show today, obviously coming off of a loss to the number one team in the country against Oregon. I'm sure we all have some thoughts, passionate or lethargic at this point. I mean, I'll be honest, I think the least shocking thing to me was the result of that game. Pretty much went how I expected, but we will get into it. And obviously what we think's happening, why it's happening, and will any of it change as the season finishes up. And then for the second half of the show, we will get into recruiting because there's a lot of it to talk about. Obviously we are in the present of a Michigan football season, but in a lot of ways it feels like we're already looking ahead with this recruiting class finish. And that might be part of the conversation too, if that's what's happening with this staff as well. I am joined, as always, by Mr. Josh Henschke, our insider and publisher at Maize and Blue Review. Sir, how are you doing?
Doing good. Hopefully the Lions can finish off this win here while we're recording, but so far so good.
Yeah, I stopped watching. I mean, what an ugly game to play in that, but
yeah, gross weather.
And the king of different backgrounds, a little darker today, but I like it. Brock Heilig, sir. How was the environment Saturday? I mean, beginning, middle, and end might be wide ranging, but obviously even compared to Michigan State last weekend.
It didn't compare to Michigan State last weekend. The environment, it felt like Michigan fans knew what was going to happen from the beginning, and like you mentioned, Trevor, it went about how we all expected it to, and there just wasn't a whole lot of juice from the crowd, and that's no offense to the Michigan fans or the people of Ann Arbor or the stadium or anything like that. It's just it's hard to get up for a game like that when it turns out the way that it did, right? A 3-touchdown loss. So there have been better atmospheres at the Big House for sure, but yeah, it was basically the most expected outcome of the season at this point.
Yeah, I was texting Josh because my prediction was 31-17. So I was sitting pretty until Dan Lanning decided to worry about getting the cover at the end of that game. So, which, by the way, get this out of the way real quick. The only people I think should be bothered by that might be Oregon fans because Lanning's risking starters at that point. But anybody talking about like running up the score or anything, you're both in the Big Ten and you're the defending national champions. There's no running up the score when you're in the same league, in my opinion. You don't want them to score, stop them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So if anybody was upset about that, I thought it was funny because again, the gambling implications almost felt too obvious to me. But I just wasn't offended by it.
They weren't going out of their way to score either. They were just
it wasn't like
running the ball
or whatever. Yeah, for sure.
You know, they're just trying to chew clock, and Michigan just couldn't stop them. So yep. the end zone eventually stopped them. So I mean it is what it is. Hey, first one out of the way.
Too early, but all right. New Life asks, how is recruiting doing so presumably well with the staff and these outcomes? I have the answer for that. We'll like I said, we'll talk about it in the second half, but I have an answer. Your fans might not want to hear it, but I have an answer. Real quick, Brian Branch getting ejected. Yeah, I thought it was garbage. If you want to call the penalty, that's fine. I literally just watched Chris Olave get laid out unconscious today and no ejection. Like I've seen hits worse than that all the time in the NFL, no ejection, but whatever. So, all right. Yeah, like I said, let's get into it. So a lot of the things that I expected happened, right, in this game in terms of Michigan's defense not being able to stop the quick throws, giving up too many third downs, right? That was kind of built in. Davis Warren played well. Maybe the comp percentage wasn't there towards the end, but maybe even better than some expected. But I think Davis Warren is showing why he was chosen as the starter at the beginning of the year now. No turnover worthy plays, no interceptions. So he's played a couple clean games. The running game has completely stalled out, which that's maybe the frustrating part of this season is you just can't have all three phases going at the same time. I think there's been strong moments for the offense. There's been strong moments for the defense. it's just been all day to be able to piece it together. And I think Josh, for some people, yeah, it ended up the way we thought it would, but there's a moment in this game late in the fourth quarter where Michigan has the ball and a chance to make this a ball game.
Yep.
And be competitive. And you can't help but think, man, so many mistakes. Got screwed by the touchdown call early on, right? I don't know how they don't get the review on that, but whatever. But everything we're talking about, and Michigan still had a chance to win, and it just really felt like, I mean, I'm going to say it felt like the coaches let the players down. They were playing hard, and they were trying to win that football game.
Yeah, no, you totally stole my line because that's what I was going to say.
My bad, dog.
The coaches 100% let Michigan down today. I mean, yeah, Oregon was the better team. Oregon played better. They won the game. But Michigan's coaching staff completely let this team and the players down today, or excuse me, yesterday. Some inexplicable stuff like the challenge on Colston's catch. I'm not even going to talk about the drop touchdown catch. That's just, an official fail by the officials. That's not on Michigan's coaching staff to keep the officials honest in that situation. But yeah, I mean, the inexplicable fourth down call with Samaj throwing it to air. It's just and not being situationally aware that you can't line up over a center, even if it was a goofy punt formation. That's why you have a dedicated special teams coach, is to teach these things and call the timeout.
Thank you. I was gonna say, even if you want to get on Pierce for not knowing, like, how is no one on the sideline like, hey, that's gonna give him a first down?
And even then, like, it was I mean, yeah, the rules are rules. It was a soft penalty because Pierce barely even touched him. He basically brushed him aside to get around him. But yeah, I mean, again, that's something that you have to identify before the snap and say, hey, this is not looking right. This isn't going to go in our favor here. And it didn't happen, and, gave up a first down, and you lost all of your momentum that you had. And that's not to say that Michigan would have won the game if that play didn't happen, but it's just coaching malpractice all around, all three phases yesterday. And yeah, I mean, there's no excuses anymore. I think, and I know I have it on good authority that Sherrone Moore is thinking long and hard about the future here and what he needs to do. So it's definitely something that you can, that he's thinking about. But yeah, I mean, what else can you say? I mean, we're 10 weeks into the year now. Like, there's nothing else you can say.
Well, no, that's why, like, I just wasn't that emotionally invested in this result, because, like, I feel like we've been shown that those things weren't going to change.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is pretty much, I think I can speak for all three of us here and say this is pretty much what we expected, coming out of the weekend, but maybe not the way it was done. That Michigan gave a lot of hope. I mean, there was hope and there was some tangible hope, but again, the mistakes, the self-inflicted wounds are just killer. You can't survive them if you want to be a good football team and beat good football teams, because they will absolutely take advantage of those mistakes. So unfortunate, but this is where we're at. This is just, you just have to accept it now and just kind of let it ride these last couple of weeks, and maybe they do something magical. Maybe they don't. Just kind of have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's clearly the biggest takeaway from this game. We can all agree, and every Michigan fan agrees too, is that the coaching really let Michigan down. That was one of my takeaways in the piece I wrote after the game yesterday. Was it's time for Sherrone Moore to have some big time conversations here, and it's going to be tough for him, and obviously nothing's going to happen. Nothing's likely to happen in the middle of a season, but it's clearly not working. And Josh brought up the special teams penalty that gave Oregon the first down. And Trevor, like you mentioned, like, even if you don't want to get on Trey Pierce for not knowing the rule, what good is a dedicated special teams coordinator if he doesn't pick up on something like that?
Yeah.
And it's nothing personally against JB Brown, but that's his only job is special teams. Like it is your job to know that that's a penalty, and no one on Michigan's sideline knew, and it gave Oregon a free first down, and it completely changed the momentum of the game. And it's 9 games into the season, and Wink Martindale is still rushing Mason Graham off the edge, and the scheme clearly isn't working. Michigan gave up more than 300 total yards of offense in the first half, and Kirk Campbell, we assume it's Kirk Campbell. We have no idea who's really calling plays at this point, but presumably Kirk Campbell is scheming up a Samaj Morgan pass to Alex Orji on 4th down. I mean, coaches failed Michigan in every area. That's just the fact of the matter. And Sharon Moore cost him with the challenge there on Colston Loveland's drop. So literally, like, you could argue the 4 most important coaches on Michigan's roster all had major blunders yesterday, and it cost them. But that's a clear takeaway. My takeaway is I don't know how anyone could not feel bad for Davis Warren. Like he's done everything the coaches have asked him to do these last 2 games. He was benched earlier in the season for turning the ball over too much. 6 interceptions in less than three games, like 2.5 games, right? He comes back after missing 4 games as the backup, and he's done nothing but take care of the ball. He's been very solid, and he's managed the offense just like they've asked any Michigan quarterback the last few years to do. He's done exactly what they're looking for. And then when it comes time for the most important play of the game on 4th down in the red zone, like I mentioned, they scheme up Samaj Morgan throwing the ball to Alex Orji. Like, why are you pulling Davis Warren out of the game when he's played a very solid game against the number 1 team in the country, and you're taking the ball out of his hands? And there was an instance earlier in the game too where he had 2 really nice throws on a drive. I can't remember which drive it was, but he had 2 really nice throws, and Michigan had first down either in the red zone or near the red zone, and they bring in Alex Orji on first down to pass the ball, and he throws it into the stands, and Michigan just burns first down, and they set themselves up with 2nd and 10. It's just, I don't know how you could not feel bad for Davis Warren, and then he's got to go into the post-game press conference and take the blame for not being good enough on 3rd down and saying that he needs to be better, when in reality he was fantastic. It was the coaches that let him down, but obviously he can't say that in the post-game press conference. So that's my biggest takeaway, is none of this is Davis Warren's fault, and unfortunately he's got to sit there and take most of the blame, even though it's not his.
I totally agree. And I think my big thing is that I know obviously people are going to look at him being benched for all that time, and Alex Orji starting, and Jack Tuttle getting in there too. I think him getting benched was the best thing for him in his his playing career, I guess. And because he would not be playing like he is right now if you would have just let it ride in the first couple of games after those 3 interceptions against Arkansas State. I think that allowed him time to kind of reassess where he was at, and now you've got a guy playing with a ton of confidence, taking care of the football, which is really the biggest thing that a quarterback,
and taking some chances too.
Yeah. Yes. He knows the scheme. He knows the offense. Just getting the ball to the playmakers is just a completely different story. And, the run game is definitely not doing him any favors either, but yeah, he's taking some chances. That throw to Tyler Morris, that touchdown, was an excellent risky throw. It's one of those where if he would have threw that early in the year, he probably wouldn't have probably wouldn't have been a touchdown. That probably would have been picked off. But he's taking chances. He's confident, and I think he just kind of needed to sit down and just kind of get the long view of everything and kind of figure it out. And yeah, I mean, look, is he the quarterback of the future? Is he going to be the guy that brings Michigan back to the national conversation? Probably not. But Michigan doesn't necessarily need a quarterback like that to be successful. So there are very other glaring issues that Michigan has. And unfortunately, the first half of the year, the quarterback was the biggest one that really just kind of set this team back a long way. But yeah, I mean, look, you give credit to Davis Warren, for not folding when he easily could have folded after being benched, and now he's playing the best ball that he can really possibly play. I mean, yeah, there's probably another level that he can reach, but all things considered, against the number one team in the country, with keeping in mind that the coaching staff let him down, you don't take the ball out of his hands when you're in the red zone. It's crazy to say that now, considering what the journey that this thing has been on leading up to now. But you don't take the ball out of you. Just when Michigan was able to figure it out, just when they were able to figure it out, they trip over themselves again. In terms of how they try to distribute the snaps between Orji and Warren. And I didn't necessarily hate how they used Orji on Saturday. I thought it was fine again. But just the situational stuff, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't think I'll ever get it. And yeah, I mean, stuff just has to be assessed at the end of the year. He's going to have some tough conversations with some friends. And, that's the part of being a leader, is you have to have tough conversations. And, you have to sometimes let friends go, I mean, that's the tough part. But if you want to be successful, ultimately at the end of the day, you have to make some decisions, and Sharon has got plenty that he's going to have to do here once the season is over.
The fourth down call killed me, because remember last week talked about the touchdown pass to Loveland and how I thought that was just really good coordinating, right? Seeing what the defense was giving you, breaking tendencies, right? Being a coordinator, it's like chess, right? Because you're trying to figure out what you think the other people are going to do, like your opponent's going to do, but you're also trying to maybe show them you're going to do something else. And you might make a move to set up a future move. And you know what I mean? It's a chess match. And what happened was, in that moment, when you have to be creative, you go to a trick play, which that's not, I would argue that's lack of creativity.
Yeah.
Right. And you hurt your odds by doing something like that. It's wild to me, and it's such a giant red flag, because it just shows to me that you got in the red zone and Orji had that huge run. What were the plays? Hold on. I want to make sure I get this right. Orji has the 26-yard run. You got 9 minutes left in the game. The crowd's going nuts. He just dragged dudes down the sideline, right? Warren gets the incomplete pass to CJ Charleston, which is kind of hilarious to me because of how they've used him this year, but whatever. And then 2nd and 10, Orji comes out and rushes it up the middle. I felt like at that point, your Orji usage almost had more to do with the run game than it did the quarterback, because you weren't giving Mullings those carries. And hey, Edwards had another decent game, but neither one of them got enough carries. I don't know how many times you can't give these guys 8 and 10 carries. It's just insane. They're not getting enough plays. It's wild to me. And then, yeah, like how you're the short side, the wide side of the field is to JJ's right. Or excuse me, this is where I was going. Davis Warren's right. Everyone talking about trying to run a JJ light offense. There you go. You bootleg it to the right and give him Loveland in the flat and somebody else in the back. And if it worked, and then maybe he can run. I don't know. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, that's the best call, right? You weren't going to catch him off guard with this Morgan thing. And that's another thing too. If you watch this game and go back and watch all the motions and all the weird stuff they're doing, the defense doesn't budge at all. You're not tricking them with all this stuff. You're just making it more complicated for yourselves. Even the flea flicker that worked, I guess I don't even know what you call that, a reverse flea flicker. even though that worked, the one to Loveland, you know what I'm talking about? I don't know what to call it. Anyway, even though that worked, if you go back and watch, like, you didn't have them scrambling around. You know what I mean? You probably could have been just as successful with a regular play action play, you know? So I don't know. But again, at this point, the reason I wasn't shocked is because there's been so many signs now of, like, the Mullings thing. I'm not even what am I supposed to say at this point, Brock? How many times have we talked about this dude deserving to be RB1 and getting the early down carries and blah, blah, blah. So whatever. But it's just not going to happen. So is my signal really bad?
It is on my end. Yeah, it's choppy.
Yeah, your screen's looking a little
I'm
funny.
gonna start you guys on the topic, and then I'm gonna reboot and see what happens. So let's talk about the defense, because some positives again, like overall. I mean, it wasn't. They gave up 30 points again. We talked about that number not needing. You need to keep them under 30 or whatever. No Will Johnson, no Jair Hill, right?
Yeah.
That's a tough test, right? But did you change anything in this game because your secondary was weak? Did you blitz as much, and did you still do the exotic packages? Did you what did you do to compensate for something being a weakness? Nothing. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't care what players I have. I don't care what my strengths are, blah, blah, blah. So, all right, I'm frozen. So talk about defense. I'll be back.
All things considered, I didn't think the DBs were that bad. Again, you're playing against the number one team in the country, ton of talent. I mean, and that's even without Tez Johnson too, who I think could have really had a big day. Unfortunately, that he got injured, but yeah, I mean, Michigan's big problem is just you talk about the continuity heading into the season, but Michigan just hasn't had continuity at all, especially at defensive backs. They've constantly rotated. Mason Curtis, I think, has been a revelation for them. I think he's had a really good couple of games that he's put together, and obviously with the 23 snaps or something like that he had during this game is proving that he can, that he's capable of having a larger workload. And the same probably could be said about Josiah Edmond too, which, probably is on a little bit of a lesser workload than Curtis is right now. But yeah, I mean, again, no Rob Moore, you're rotating in, Makari Page, who I think had his best game of the year when he's lined up over the slot. Wesley Walker has been banged up. I mean, there's been no sign of Ricky Johnson. Jair Hill being banged up. There's just no continuity there. They haven't had anything they haven't had a full squad to work with arguably all year, which is just crazy to think about considering, largely Michigan had, for the most part, I mean, yeah, you can count some outliers in there. For the most part, we keep switching ourselves at the same time, Trevor. All right, I got it. Okay, I got it. That was funny. I just totally lost my point too. Oh yeah, injury luck. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, last year and in the years prior, Michigan has had decent injury luck. Yeah, you can point to, some big names being hurt, but this year is on a whole nother level. And the continuity is just not there. I mean, you're playing Mason Graham at defensive end out of necessity because Benny's been banged up. Hell, even Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore have been banged up at the same time too. So, yeah, I do think, the Wink criticism is valid, but has Michigan been working with a stacked deck all year? No. Do I think that really changes their fortunes this year? No. But, at the same time, I'd like to see what Michigan's capable of when they're running at 100%. I mean, obviously no team is ever 100%, but I'd like to see what a full, Michigan squad would look like this year, if there's any difference. But yeah, no, I think the Wink criticism is valid. A lot of it for coordinators on both sides of the ball, a lot of it is feel, and it feels like they're trying to insert their feeling into the game, which is not what it is. It's just like, it's not the appropriate time for like a blitz or a trick play or running up the middle or something like that. But look, I mean, it's clear that this wink experiment isn't working out. Michigan's defense is just very average. If you look at their stats, you look at their Pro Football Focus grades, outside of the pass rush, which obviously it better be good considering who you have, on that defensive line. It better be one of the best in the country. Trevor, you muted also. What a disaster. Oh, it's just sums up. It just sums it all up.
It's not that bad.
Oh, it's a disaster.
No, I was just saying, like, let's be clear. That is the best defensive front in college football. It's not what we thought it would be at the start of the year, and it's not. It is still, production-wise. It's the best defensive front in college football.
Yeah. And you look and sound a lot better. So there you go.
Yes, you do.
That's all you needed. Yeah, no, like what the New Life said is pretty tough to bake a cake without all the ingredients. Yes. I think Michigan has been playing with one arm tied behind their back all year, but that good teams work around that, and Michigan is just not a good team right now. And I mean, could you make a case that, these losses are kind of insurmountable? Maybe, you could make that case, but yeah, look, it's just not working out. And it's just, it happens sometimes, whether it's personalities, whether it's just the fit in general, it's just not working out. And that's just the way it is. It's just the reality of everything, a failed experiment. But yeah, I mean, again, I'd like to see what Michigan looks like with a stacked deck, but I don't think this like rapidly changes the outlook of the year. I mean, you've still got glaring issues that just won't get fixed if you have players at full health. So,
yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said there, Josh, on the defense. Michigan's been playing, like you said, with one arm tied behind its back. It's just been one step forward and two steps back on the injury front. It's like, great, Rayshon Benny's back when the availability report came out yesterday, but there's Jair Hill and Will Johnson, and it's just like Michigan gets one guy back and then loses another one or two.
Yeah,
I do give the defensive backs yesterday credit because I think when the report came out and everyone saw Will Johnson and Jair Hill out, I think a lot of people were pretty worried with Michigan's backup defensive backs going up against Dylan Gabriel and Tez Johnson and those guys there. But I thought they put up a pretty good fight. Amir Hall did get burned once or twice, if I remember correctly, but four times maybe. Okay.
Amir Hall got cooked, but somebody was going to get cooked. Like, it had to be somebody. So
I give him credit though, because he was blanketing Evan Stewart on that first touchdown. And I'm not going to get into that call or anything like that, but that was great, great cornerback play, and just a great throw and a great catch. You can't do anything in that instance but tip your cap to Oregon. But yeah, the defense, it's obviously been a struggle, but Michigan's just got to, I don't know, limp its way to the finish line at this point. There's not much you can do. Like,
yeah, you summed it up. It's
just you got to be good enough to beat Northwestern and get bowl eligible. Like, you're not gonna slow down Indiana at this point. It's not looking promising there. You're probably not going to slow down Ohio State in Columbus. You just got to be good enough to hold Northwestern to as few points as possible, I guess. But it's and it's pretty obvious that a lot of players have not, maybe not obvious, but I do think on some level, some players have not necessarily checked out, but the juice isn't there from what it was last year. Like everyone expected Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant to be these dominant forces, and it's nothing against them or anything, but they just haven't been. Like it's hard when you come off a national championship like Michigan did, and then have such a disappointing season like they're enduring now. It's hard to get up and stay focused like that, but it's just not, the pieces aren't there, and that's the fact of the matter. And Michigan's just going to have to find a way to get bowl eligible and get a few more practices.
I disagree on like your take with Mason and Kenneth. I mean, they're on snap 55 and going as hard as they absolutely can. And we know Mason's been banged up all year too. I think what you're more talking about is just the general vibe that losing brings, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking with a few guys, Darbo and some other friends, and I thought about, first off, 2023 will never be duplicated because of what the COVID season allowed in terms of extra eligibility, in terms of, everybody, we constantly talk about how much depth Michigan had last year. Let's be clear. They had over 100 scholarship players. Okay. Like they were using NIL to their advantage, and the transfer portal they will literally never have a roster that deep ever again. It's not possible. Right. Yeah. So, and you had just such a good mix of that depth, elite talent at certain positions, but also a culture. A lot of these guys were here in 2020, or they were here in 2021 on the buildup, right? They were here for the losing. They were here for fighting back and not wanting to go back, right? In some ways, this team is arguably a little spoiled, right? They haven't faced that kind of adversity or know how bad things fell, or you know what I mean? So I think that can play into it too. They just don't know how to fight back from stuff like this. When Michigan State loss happened in 2021, a lot of the guys came out and said, we wouldn't have beat Penn State without that Michigan State loss, and we wouldn't have beat Ohio State. Right. Because when that loss happened, they're like, no, not again. We're not blowing this again. You know what I mean? And I think that's a vibe that's there. And I hear you with the injuries. It's absolutely part of the formula. But when it's Ernest Hausman being out of place and taking bad angles, and Jayshawn Barham consistently taking bad angles and being out of place, and Makari Page missing tackles, and guys that have been here, right, and shouldn't be making these kind of mistakes, and you see guys looking around and not knowing where they're supposed to be, or there's 10 guys on the field, or there's 12 guys on the field, or we're making a defensive substitution when the offense didn't sub, and now we're getting a penalty, and it's like that kind of stuff. They're not organized, and we talked about last week. I can't get that play out of my head when Mason Graham doesn't even try to get in the backfield because he knows he's in the wrong position, and he immediately bolts down the line of the scrimmage on the backside. And there were a couple plays in this one too, the Dylan Gabriel touchdown run, and then there was another third down run I think the running back had, where they put the entire strength of the line to one side of the center. They ran a stunt that got Graham more outside, and there's this giant hole, go figure, where nobody was standing even pre-snap. That kind of stuff is just like, but again, it's not going away. It is what it is. Somebody asked about like the scheme fit. You're so far past that at this point. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah.
Look, you go get somebody who, what you're really talking about is a multiple front defense, somebody that likes nickel play, whatever. But like the idea that it's got to be a Ravens dude, you're so far past that at this point, because you've already blown up whatever Minter left. And I think what we're seeing, because so many of these dudes got NFL jobs, which is so often the case, whether you're talking about Sean McVay with the Rams or Kyle Shanahan or these other coaching trees, hell, even Nick Saban, let's make a college reference. You can't just go hire a dude that worked for a guy and then everything's the exact same. Yeah, maybe they know the scheme. They still have to be a really good coach, right? So a guy I wanted probably the most is it Zach Orr? That's his first name is Zach, right? Zach Orr with the Ravens. Ravens fans want him gone, right? Dude that's been in the system, made the defensive coordinator, right? Jesse Minter was a really, really smart coach.
He's a savant. He's a savant.
And he's killing it with the Chargers. Like,
Yep.
it was a combination of scheme and him being a really, really good coach. And I think Wink, the OG, and, you know, some of the comments he's made about how long he's been coaching football and blah, blah, blah. I think what happened in the NFL and what the Ravens did after he left, specifically Mike McDonald, Michigan, goes back, Minter, right? I think he wanted to come to Michigan and prove it was his system and it wasn't just these young guys and blah, blah, blah. Well, it was, right? So he's the second highest paid defensive coordinator in college football. If you decide it's not going to work with him moving forward, I don't care who he is, who you think the best defensive coordinator in college football is, that's who you go hire. I don't care what scheme he is or who he used to know or blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't matter anymore, especially when you go to your roster and you're like, I mean, you can find a fit, right? But at the same time, the coach's job is to find the fit. That was what made Mitchell so good too. The 22 and the 23 defenses were not the same because the strengths and the weaknesses were different, right? He adapted. That's what you do. That's what good coaches do. You don't force your system on your players. So that's what needed to change this year, and we're only a few games away, so I just don't expect it to. So, I'm with Brock. Beat Northwestern, get bowl eligible, because then you get the practices. Cool. I think they have a chance against Indiana just because I don't know. I feel like they have a chance. They're 10-point underdogs going into that game. Oh my God, that's hilarious. But this is okay. This one I've seen a ton too. Nope. Minter did not want to be the college football head coach. He doesn't like recruiting. He was always going to go to the NFL, and being a great coordinator doesn't mean you're going to be a great head coach either. That hindsight thing,
he made the smart career move because he's going to be an NFL head coach here.
Yeah.
Maybe even after this.
And you know what? He might be a bad NFL head coach.
Yeah.
I don't know if he will or won't. So much of it is about the right pieces and things like that, right? But like, we've seen it how many times. Ben Johnson too. There is just as much a good chance Ben Johnson could go be a bad NFL head coach. Being a great coordinator isn't necessarily the same skill set. Dan Campbell, John Harbaugh, some of these guys are they're good CEOs and good head coach. I don't think Dan Campbell would be a good coordinator, right? What was he, tight end coach and assistant head coach? I don't remember, but anyway, different conversation. This is one I don't know. I don't know what the conversations are behind. Huh?
I don't think it changes anything.
No.
So.
No, maybe not, but it's just something. It's him, Trevor, or you calling it or whatever. It's just to me. But anyway,
your computer is freezing.
What's going on?
Look, switching a play caller isn't going to make this team play good football. It's not going to magically fix 15 turnovers in a year, in a season where Michigan maybe had 15 turnovers in the last, I don't know, decade. Obviously that's stretching the truth a little bit, but maybe you find some rhythm with Sharon calling the plays, but he's not calling the plays. He's not going to call plays on defense. That you still got the other side of the ball to worry about. Special teams is outside of Zavada has been wholly underwhelming. I think Tommy Doman's taken a giant step back. He has not been a threat to flip the field like he has been in the past. So unless Michigan starts magically scoring 50 points a game, which they've scored like 50 points total, like in the last 4 games or something ridiculous like that. You kind of have to make your bed and lay in it with what you have right now. And that kind of brings me to a totally different point. Those calling for, why don't they just fire Kirk and Wink, midseason? Because Michigan just doesn't do that, unless obviously something prompts the firing, like the NCAA stuff. But and then B, then you're stretching all your other coaches way too thin. And so arguably you're going to look even worse because you're going to have, position coaches doing a million different things. And yeah, I know obviously you can have analysts doing.
Yeah, but there's no obvious replacement either. So
right.
like, okay, you fire Wink and you promote Lamar Morgan because he has DC experience. Cool. You have now just taken your secondary coach out, which has been your hardest hit position because he's coaching the entire secondary.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense.
You're asking, you're stretching you're stretching those guys way too thin, taking away a position coach like that. So, or a coordinator like that. So it's not, and again, it's not going to fix things. I mean, it doesn't matter if Michigan wins out down, they're not going to make the playoff. If we win out, huh? Yeah. I mean, by some miracle that they beat two, is Indiana a top 10 team yet? Or are they a fringe?
Yeah. They're number 8.
So, okay. You beat 2 top 10 teams. You're still not going to make the playoffs with 4 losses. Even if that were the simplest answer to make is, let's just fire Kirk Campbell. That'll fix all the problems. It doesn't. It's not going to mean anything. It's
the same. It's the same logic of, the other quarterback I haven't seen is the answer. Right. I thought people calling for Jane Denegal the previous week. Like, why do you just think because you haven't seen him, he's the one that'll fix it? It's so funny.
Yeah. It gives you a head start for hiring people in the offseason, but you won't be able to hire anyone until the season is over anyway. So you get an extra head start by scouting guys, but guess what? If you're going to make a move, you're already scouting guys privately anyway. You have a list. Every coach, athletic director have lists of guys of who they want, potential guys of who they want in case something happens. The AD case, they have a list of names for head coaches of who they want, just in case anything happens. Sharon, list of guys he wants in case anything happens. So it's not like he's going to go in there and be like, oh, well, guess we'll see what happens. I'm going to spin the wheel here and see what it lands on. These guys know. Sharon is not a moron. He knows what's going on. He knows what he needs to do. And I'm sure he's already made up his mind on some things that need to happen. So, there's ways of handling things. Some handle things differently than others. But look, he knows that staying the course is not the answer and is never going to be the answer. He's not a moron. So we'll just kind of see what happens at the end of the year here. But there's no denying that these next decisions that he makes and who he replaces is going to define the rest of his tenure in Ann Arbor. I mean, the excuses, he was hired late. There was no quarterbacks left in the portal when by the time he was taken over. All those excuses expire as soon as the clocks hit 0 against Ohio State. All of that expires.
Yep.
And now this is when you start looking through everything with a fine-tooth comb and magnifying glass and judging what happens next. So in recruiting, and obviously is a big part of that, which we'll get into here shortly. But
what do I know about the staff you said earlier? I don't know what that is. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, that question caught. Yeah. Brock, you are going to leave us because you don't want to just sit there doing nothing while Josh and I get into recruiting. So give me your final thoughts. And I mean, obviously you're going to be making the trek to Bloomington. What are you thinking you're going to see, or do you have any hope on anything? I guess.
Well, yeah, I agree with what Josh said. This is going to be Sharon's first full off season. And in my opinion, no one's job is safe. Once that Ohio State game is over, win or lose, obviously, I think we all expect it to be a loss. But even if Michigan pulls out some miracle, I still don't think anyone's job is safe in terms of the coaching staff surrounding Sharon Moore. And even if Michigan does make it to a bowl game, I don't think there's any sense in if Sharon Moore knows he's going to make a change. I don't think there's any sense in keeping those guys around just for the bowl game practices. Like, get a head start on this thing. Get the guy at the top of your list, Josh, like you were talking about. Whoever is number one, go and get him. Right? Like, give yourself as much time, as much preparation as you need to go and make a good pitch. But this is it. I mean, this is when things start getting real for Sharon Moore, and I think we're going to determine a lot about him as a coach over these next few weeks and months. But yeah, in terms of Bloomington, I personally don't have a whole lot of hope. I mean, Indiana's crazy. I don't understand it. Obviously, they still haven't played a team with a winning record or anything like that. I don't know the exact stats, but they haven't played a good team. But I don't think Michigan's a good team. So I think Indiana's going to go in there and roll. I really do. And somehow Curt Cignetti is I don't even know how to explain it. I'm at a loss for words. He's gone in there and completely turned around that program. He's got them ranked 8th in the country. They're 9-0, about to be 10-0, and I think they're going to go to the college football playoff. They could be playing in the Big Ten championship game, and
they're probably 11-1 and maybe 12-0. Yeah.
There's a real chance they go into Columbus and win, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the game we're talking about. We're talking about Michigan. I just don't see a path to victory. I really don't. I think this team is demoralized, and Indiana's got something to play for. It's quite bizarre that it's going to be 9-0 Indiana against 5-4 Michigan. I can't imagine how many times those records have been swapped in the
never.
They've in series.
Indiana's literally never had a 9-0 start. So
I know, it's unbelievable, but yeah, I think Indiana's going to roll by multiple scores. But in terms of something I'm looking for in this game, Trevor, you brought it up earlier. It's the running game, and you mentioned it, 18 carries between Donovan Edwards and Kalel Mullings. I don't know if Michigan was doing like they were punishing Kalel Mullings for his involvement in the Michigan State thing at the end of the game, but he didn't get a single carry in the first quarter.
I doubt that. Moore basically said he was a hero. So
yeah, I don't understand. We've talked about it at length all season long, Trevor, you especially, about how Kalel Mullings is the early down back, and you give him the ball. And has he been the same these last few games as he was at the beginning of the year? No, but he's still the guy. It's so clear that he's the early down back that you establish the run with, and then you bring in Donovan Edwards to spice things up, and giving Kalel Mullings no carries in the first quarter is mind-boggling. It really is. But get the run game going. And if you want to argue that the offensive line is not as good as it has been, I would listen to those arguments. And maybe that's part of the reason why it hasn't been working for them. But try and get the run game going and then incorporate the pass as well. But yeah, I'm not very optimistic about Saturday.
Yeah, I'd love to give Curt Spaghetti his first loss. I'm more interested in the long-term thing, because I think a guy like him, and I think about like a PJ Fleck too, where you have your own culture. Like, your culture is so much about you. It's really easy to walk into a place that doesn't really have much of one and bring in like this kind of giant spark, but can you build it to something sustainable? I don't know if he's going to stay there long enough for us to find out. He might get a huge job next year already. You know what I mean? But kind of a perfect storm of being able to bring in some elite players from James Madison, and then just, that schedule. Again, you can only play the teams that your schedule. I get it. But and I don't care about the MSU blowout, because once they lose to Michigan, their season's done. We see it every single time. Every single time. They're done once they lose to Michigan.
That is true.
Anyway, Brock, we'll look forward to your Indiana coverage, and then also basketball. Obviously, we'll have some basketball stuff to talk about, which, again, I mean, every single week it continues to look like we're going to get an elite basketball season thanks to the ecosystem of Michigan. But all right, buddy, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Okay.
Yep. See you guys.
All right, let's get into recruiting.
He's gone. Quick, let's talk about him.
Yeah. Can you change the background of the duo for me? Because that's going to annoy me.
Yep.
Henry, I know what you're talking about now. Something I won't like, or you won't like that I have to say. Somebody said like, "Oh, how is the staff recruiting with the results?" and blah blah blah. That I don't know why I said it like that. You didn't ask the question that way. I'm so sorry. The question was, how are they able to recruit with some of these results on the field? And the answer I was going to give, I don't think people are going to like, is Sharon Moore is really good, right? And this is why he was given the head coach job, to be the CEO. I think he needs his own Sharon Moore on staff, and I think he needs coordinators that can do what they need to do without him having his hands in there, so he can do that part of it, right? He's got to get that staff part figured out. But these players believe in him. There's a bunch of fans that might not right now, but all these people recruiting him, that they're recruiting, they keep saying the same thing, that they love Moore, they believe in him, his plan for them, etc. And he said from day one, this is what he was going to do with recruiting. And now we're seeing his vision come to fruition here. Everything from adding resources and people to building bridges between all the NIL partners, the university, the collectives, just the framing of conversations, etc. I'm going to start with Bryce Underwood because he's obviously the conversation. In that same note, this hasn't been a short-term thing. I think a lot of people, because of what Dave Portnoy said, and then the way the Underwood smoke kind of started to come out, Josh, you and I have talked about, we were hearing stuff for like 6 weeks. Michigan was talking to him longer than that. This isn't Dave Portnoy said something and then all of a sudden Michigan threw money at Underwood and now he's interested. That's not what's happening, okay? It's been going on for a while, right? Michigan has their vision for him and what the offense can or could be. And I think that honestly is the biggest hurdle. Bryce wants to know he's going to go somewhere where his skills are going to be taken advantage. This dude wants to win a Heisman. He wants to win national championships. He wants to be the #1 draft pick, whatever. Right.
Yep.
So it's tough because we've talked about so much of this on our board, which again, if you're not a subscriber already, michigan.rivals.com. We've been covering this like crazy. If you don't want to pay up front and give us a trial run, Blue 30 gets you the month free. And you can ask our subscribers what they think as well and kind of see what we're doing. But look, it's legitimate, this pursuit. Underwood and his people, the interest is mutual. I think Joe Sloan, the LSU offensive coordinator, has his own rumors around him because he's a former East Carolina quarterback. That job is open. A lot of people think he's the favorite for that. He hasn't shut that down yet, which is a weird position to be put in. I know I'm not saying he should have done anything, but whatever. He comes for Bryce's playoff game, looks very cold on the sideline. Very cold, that Southern boy. And they obviously are currently expecting him to visit next weekend for the LSU-Alabama game. Mm-hmm. Some interesting thing for Michigan with other recruits. Derek Meadows, 5-star wide receiver, committed to LSU, takes an official visit up here to Michigan. Out of nowhere, wasn't expected. Call me crazy. I don't think he does that without the Bryce flip potential, right? Like Michigan was already out of it when it was down to LSU, Notre Dame, Bama, right? And he's supposed to go to Notre Dame next week, not be at the LSU game. And then Elijah Dotson, who we'll get to as well, but Bryce's teammate, arguably his best friend at Belleville, Michigan ramped up the pursuit of him, back-to-back visits from him. We have not seen Underwood on the sideline, despite what some tweets have told you. That was not Bryce Underwood in that picture. We know he's been on campus. We know he's been around, but a lot of things are happening behind the scenes. I guess, Josh, I don't know where we're at with this. I don't know if it's about predictions or confidence levels or what. I mean, maybe we need to frame this with the context of Carter Smith decommitting as well. I don't know, but I guess just where's your head at right now with, I think there's a void of information. Anytime that happens, people are desperate for that void to be filled. And I just don't know if you can fill it yet.
Yeah. I mean, you can't fill a void because this isn't a daily thing. This isn't like a daily movement. Hell, even, I don't think this is even a weekly thing. I think there obviously is plenty of things discussed behind the scene. And I both know you and I get tons of stuff during the week about, what people are hearing and or thinking. If we were to believe that, just the sole stuff of what we've heard that may or may not even be true, you would believe that, Underwood is
already committed.
Yeah, he's already committed. It's already done. He's just waiting to flip. But yeah, I think it goes beyond that. Obviously, the fact that Belleville is still playing is a big deal. I think that really, I wouldn't say get in the way of a decision, but I think it definitely is pausing his decision because he's got football to think about, obviously.
Mhm.
The LSU visit this weekend is a big visit. Let's just call it what it is. It's a big visit coming up. Do I think that's the end all be all of the pursuit for Bryce if he makes that visit? No, I don't. If he doesn't make that visit, does that help Michigan? Of course. So obviously that's kind of a gulf of one expectation to the other. If he makes the visit, it's not that bad, but if he doesn't make the visit, it's good. So, but I mean, it could very well be shut down if he makes a visit to LSU. But the only way this gets shut down is if he publicly says he shuts it down, or sends in his NIL. So I'm expecting Belleville to play Friday night, obviously, and unfortunately, if you're kind of a logistics person, LSU and Alabama play at 7:30 on Saturday, so there is obviously a path for him to both play his game and make it to the trip. Obviously, it's difficult. It's a quick turnaround, but it's not impossible. Recruits do it all the time. So, yeah. So, I mean, if he makes the trip, I think my confidence takes a hit for sure. But I'm not ready to pack it in and call it a day. But again, it's one of these things where it's just like nothing is going to change on a daily basis. It's just kind of this slow momentum build where eventually it's going to the point where it's going to get announced. I mean, is Michigan? I don't want to say Michigan. Are people kind of pressuring him to maybe make a decision earlier? Yes, that is happening. I do know the family really likes Sharon. Sharon and Sean McGee, their GM. I'll say both have done a really, really good job getting this. It's taken some time. This has been like
we got to remember this goes back to when Matt Weiss was still here and the Underwoods stopped talking to Michigan.
Yes.
Right. It's like it was done. And Kirk got them kind of close and brought it back in before he ultimately committed to LSU. But yeah, this is years in the making. So like this idea that they just like knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we got this offer." And, now we're interested. That's not how this works, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, like the fact that it went public like it did doesn't mean it was just a new development. I mean, this is something that has been building confidence to the point where people are comfortable talking about it.
That's
out loud.
Well,
I mean, like it's gotten to that point where people are just comfortable talking about it. So, I said on the boards that I was 65% confident, and people took that like, "Holy shit, this is happening! Oh my god, I didn't realize that number was such a big deal." But I guess this number is kind of, I guess it's above 50%. So, I have to take some level of confidence in what people are saying behind the scenes into account. I can't do it fully because again, if I did it fully, I would be telling you right now it's happening. Oh, he's already committed. This is just we're waiting for this grand announcement, this grand plan. I think a lot of our viewers are smart people. I think people can connect some dots. Derek Meadows being.
I'll say let's connect the dots. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we can do that. We're all adults here. We can talk about connecting the dots without having to make it seem like
I'm going to say it blatantly. Derek Meadows is not on campus if the Underwoods smoke. Not even smoke, but if like the conversations aren't legitimate.
Yep.
I'm sorry. And LSU has some, I shouldn't say LSU, that's not fair, but some folks who cover LSU has kind of tried to frame this like, oh, he's just taking his visits before he signs. But no, Michigan was not in the picture.
He took his visits before he committed. So these are like brand new, fresh visits.
And even Notre Dame, like, fine. He was a Notre Dame lean for a very long time, arguably, right? Like, this is clearly him at least exploring the possibility of following Bryce, right? And obviously his visit went well as well. We'll see what goes on with Notre Dame. I think he's not flipping if Bryce doesn't.
Right. You want my official position on this?
Of course I do.
I mean, it's kind of a duh. It's kind of a duh, like no duh thing, but he's not going to commit unless Bryce commits. I still think
if he commits before Bryce, you might as well tell me Bryce is going to.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big tell.
Yeah.
I think he sticks with LSU if Bryce sticks, and I think a lot of his decision to visit elsewhere is due to the fact because there's a lot of unknowns about Underwood already, and yeah, they talk behind the scenes and stuff. It's not like these guys are completely blindsided, but there is some sort of like concern level for protecting your own and kind of figuring out what makes sense. Sense for you. So, I think the odds of Meadows flipping go up dramatically if Underwood flips to Michigan. I think that's where
I think it's 0 if he doesn't.
Right, and I don't think it happened. And I don't think he's coming if he doesn't. So that's kind of where things are at. And you might be sitting here going, "Well, no, duh, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that." But I mean, facts are facts. This is what the landscape is right now, and it's what it is.
I also don't think Michigan is out on another big time receiver if it's not Meadows. So if Bryce does flip, I do think there's a couple other big time receivers that come into play. Look, and this kind of, I guess we'll frame this in the conversation about Carter Smith decommitting as well. I like Carter Smith. He has been a Michigan man in whatever context since he committed. He's been heavily recruited, helped with recruiting and bringing guys in. But you do not pass up an opportunity to go after Bryce Underwood. And I think what we've seen in the Michigan, and look, Michigan's in the position it's in right now in its quarterback room. And I think they go after Bryce, and if Bryce commits, I wouldn't be shocked if they still add another quarterback in this class. I think they're going to add 1 to 2 guys in the portal because who knows who's coming or going or whatever. But like, you have to completely revamp this quarterback room. And Carter Smith was a project, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean he was probably a couple years out from starting. Jaden Davis not getting on the field this year, I think plays into it. And Brady Hart, I think, is a big part of this as well. Having Brady Hart, who is more likely timeline-wise, makes it easier to lose Carter Smith as well. I don't blame him for looking elsewhere. I know he was told even before the visit Saturday they were pursuing Underwood. Mm-hmm. I don't know what was said during that visit or after that led to, obviously, his father tweeted an old tweet that mentioned the Harbaugh phrase about transformational, not transactional. That felt like a shot. And then he decommits before taking any other visits. So it was kind of like a rough out, if you will. But I think the Underwood pursuit is legitimate. I think the interest is mutual and legitimate. I think this isn't just an NIL conversation. I think that although Underwood has shown wanting to maybe go to the SEC or not, like, been drawn to the hometown kid thing as much as some other people have. I think that angle is there. I think you're able to tell him, look, the starting quarterback at Michigan from Detroit, dude, you know what I mean? Not just the NIL we're talking now, but the future that exists there. But also, again, you gotta be selling him on a willingness. I knew what you meant. You're average fan. You're good. On a willingness to adapt this offense to him. And I think Moore wants to do that. I believe he 100% means what he's telling these guys. And that was evident from what you got in Andrew Marsh commitment earlier. I think the Babaloa commitment is obviously a big deal, and the guys that could potentially come, again, the doors that open here with Bryce. Look, my number I gave was even higher than yours, right? And I kind of had a similar reaction where I was like, oh, I guess I didn't know what that meant. I'm not saying it's permanent. The LSU visit could change how I feel.
Right.
Things we hear in the next couple days could change how I feel. But I think today it's more likely than not Bryce Underwood will flip to Michigan. And I don't think you're going to see a decommit in another week or two of pursuit. I think it's going to be the same button, just like we saw with Shamari Earls, where it's thanks, Georgia, Michigan, all in one breath, if you will. And that's another position, man, where you see Michigan has changed the recruiting game, right? Shamari Earls flips. Grayson Littleton had to decommit from Clemson because they're kind of old school still and like don't let you take visits. So he came up to Michigan. He was here. I would guess, I mean, I'll let you say how you want to say it, but that feels like that's going to be Michigan sooner rather than later. Alex Graham has come back up as well. Now he's at Cass Tech, was at IMG for a little bit. His pursuit's been interesting. We'll call it that. And then Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng as well. I know I just threw a lot of names at you. I don't know why I did it that way. Probably because we're already in an hour. But I did talk to somebody close to him tonight. I'm hoping to get more information. But all these guys I just named, Michigan's in the driver's seat at this point. Like there's a chance for a big finish. And I think what they did this weekend that was so important is I feel like they put a few clicks together. Right? You had Underwood. I mentioned Elijah Dotson. That's another guy, probably Michigan sooner rather than later. His pursuit did not pick up until the Underwood thing did. I think that's an obvious dot connector. But anyway, I think you took this little Underwood click of Meadows, Dotson, Underwood. I think you took these defensive flip candidates like Earls and Littleton and put them together in a guy like Owusu-Boateng. And now you just have this one big group of dudes that are now and Brady Hart and some of the 26 guys as well. Mm-hmm. You know, we had reporting from, was it Greg? On Brady Hart?
Oh, John.
Okay,
John Garcia. Yeah.
John Garcia. That not only is Brady Hart know about the Underwood pursuit, he hopes he comes to Michigan.
Yeah, he's all in on it.
He thinks the QB room will be better. He thinks he will make him better. He'd love for Bryce Underwood to be at Michigan. Yep. And he was arguably one of the top recruiters this weekend, right? Yep. So now Michigan's talking about, look, whoever you're recruiting on offense, these are our QBs for the future. Here's who you're going to play with. Like, it's just the plan's coming together, if you will. So anyway, like I said, I just threw everything at you because we're getting late, so we can just kind of see where the conversation goes or people ask questions. But Aaron just asked, top 10 class, what are the odds? Good.
I mean, yeah, good. yeah, good. I mean, a couple of bounces will have to go Michigan's way, but you know, all of those names right there that are flip candidates or commitment candidates, that'll put you right there. I mean, that's, you know, you're talking multiple 5 stars, some high 4 stars. Shamari Earls is going to get his 4th star on Rivals. For the love of God, people, stop being up my ass about it. It's getting done. Yeah, I know. It's an oversight.
Underrated, yeah.
I know. For the love of God. It's getting fixed. I've sent messages. It's getting to be addressed. Anyway, yeah, I don't even know where to start. We didn't even mention Elijah Dotson.
I mentioned him like 3 times, but you're good.
Did you? Oh, I just got lost with the amount of names that you threw. I expect me to know all of them. You know, remember what you were talking about. No, look, I think I'm supremely confident that Grayson Littleton ends up at Michigan. The only thing I'm kind of looking at is time-wise. I know Texas was getting in on him before the weekend. No visit date was set up, so I'm kind of curious if that Texas visit happens at all. You know, obviously, if he commits, I don't think that Texas visit is happening. But heading into the weekend, people were confident. Heading out of the weekend, people are even more confident that this thing gets done. So,
dude, if you keep Taylor and you have Jaden Sanders and you have Winston and you add Littleton, and you that's secondary. Lamar Morgan's gonna finish one of the top recruiters in the country.
Yeah, that's an insane DB haul, and they need it too because they're going to lose Will Johnson. Who knows what Rod Moore is going to do? Makari Page, obviously. So, yeah. So, look, who are the other names that we mentioned? Oh, Jamar Browder too is another one that I think
I did not mention him. You're right.
Yeah, that's another name that I'm expecting to flip here relatively soon. I'd imagine. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't even flip coming out of that unofficial visit he made earlier in the year. He's just a kid that kind of just had a really low key first recruitment process. Got offered by North Carolina State, liked it enough, and committed. Now, that was a good ID by Michigan to get that one, and that one's going to get over the finish line. I do think Elijah Dotson will flip from Pitt, and that obviously another dot, no pun intended. On the
so do you feel the same way? Sorry, but do you feel the same way about Dotson as kind of how we framed the Meadows conversation? Is there a world where Dotson flips to Michigan and Bryce doesn't?
Yes. I don't think this is some magical throw in. I don't think Dotson is that type of player where you just like he's a pity take, just to land.
I'm not.
I know you're not phrasing. I know you're not phrasing it.
Let me give you an analogy, and maybe this will help you.
Sure.
Rashawn Gary and Michael Dwumfor.
Yeah.
Dwumfor was absolutely good enough to take.
Yes.
I felt really bad because everybody treated him like a pity take. He absolutely came here and played well, right? But that was it only helped the Rashawn Gary recruit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it does. Yeah. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt, and I know you're not saying he's a pity take, and I'm just.
No, I like Dotson a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think he's a really intriguing player. He's the type of guy that you just take and kind of figure out where he fits, because they're already loaded at defensive back right now. So you could realistically take him as a receiver, and you've got another big, long-bodied guy that can play receiver. So yeah, he's just one of those guys that you take, and let's call it how it is. If Klink stayed, he would be committed by now for months. I mean, Michigan just needed to show, an ounce of interest in him, and he was going to go to Michigan. But this new staff kind of had different priorities, and interest kind of faded there a little bit, and he ended up with Pitt. But either way, I would be incredibly surprised if it's not Michigan, he sticks with Pitt. I think he'll either go to Michigan or Michigan State. It's one of the two, but Michigan feels really good about a flip. Does that mean that you should be celebrating and saying Bryce is for sure coming because of that? No. It certainly helps. You've got another big guy in Michigan's corner at Belleville that is pro Michigan, that in a program that desperately needs pro Michigan people. So there's obviously other factors there as well. So it's a good get for Michigan too, because you get this intriguing athlete that can play defensive back or receiver, even a safety.
They're not the same style player, but like I remember when Michigan took Mike Sainer still.
Yeah.
And it was like, we don't know what he is. It's like, well, and I know Jim Harbaugh, if it was corny or whatever, but he was right a lot. He's a football player, right? Dotson is literally, whether it's receiver, whether it's corner, whether it's contributing to special teams right away, like it feels like he's going to find a niche or he's going to do whatever you ask him to do. Like that's the kind of player he feels like, and you take that. Right?
Yeah. No. And I'm trying to think of other names that we were talking about. Cameron White is another kid that Michigan really likes. He's a 3-star linebacker. He was committed to UCF earlier in the week, but they fired their defensive coordinator. He decommitted and then quickly scheduled a visit to Michigan. So there is a possibility there where he could take some other visits elsewhere and announce for Michigan later. But I don't know if what he does is contingent on what Owusu Boateng does, but Owusu Boateng is a take no matter what, obviously, but I don't know if that impacts their linebacker numbers fully. But look, folks, Michigan is right in it for Owusu Boateng. I mean, they're right there.
I think they nailed it this weekend. I know he tends to be very pro whoever when he goes on a visit. Like that's, and you and I have talked about like, oh, we had a great visit. Has anybody ever come out and said, oh my God, my visit was awful?
Yeah,
yes,
right.
but it's exceptionally rare. Like you're being wooed, whatever. But this was a big deal. This was, his family was there. His coach was there, right? This was a big deal. And they really got into the finer details and kind of the brass tacks. And I think coming out of this one, you're not seeing the graphics. You're not seeing the, what do you fans think? Like, you're not seeing that. This is decision time now. And it's a more serious, like, no, I could see myself here. Right. And he's the guy that I think cares very much about who he plays with too. And that's why I think having the people you had was a big deal. And look, Boateng is massive for this class. It's massive specifically for Brian Jean-Marie. I think he needs that win.
Yep.
It's massive potentially for next year. Boateng could play next year. You might need him to, but he's good enough to play next year. But when you start looking at this class, it's like, wait a minute. It's a really good mix of, hey, I've got depth guys. I've got guys that I could hit on, those diamonds in the rough that I like and whatever. But what's changed with more is I'm getting elite guys at all the positions that matter. Right. If I'm closing the way I think I'm potentially closing as Michigan, I mean, this is fantasy world stuff potentially when you start listing everybody off. But if you get your Underwood and you have your two running backs, Jasper Parker was an absolute steal.
Yep.
Getting Jasper Parker when they did. What a senior year he's had. Awesome. Right. And if you said Donovan Johnson earlier, didn't you? You should have said Jordan Davison. That's what tripped me up. They did get Donovan Johnson.
I didn't mention Donovan Johnson. But
yeah, I don't remember when you said it. You said it for
IMG
something.
kid.
IMG thing. Yeah, that's what it was. But anyway, if he gets back to anywhere near what he used to be, and you have Andrew Marshall, you add another big star receiver, I hope you can hold on to Olish, but honestly, he's probably like, that room's so loaded. I hope he comes, but that one doesn't bother me terribly. You have Babaloa, you have your left tackle, you've got Jalen Williams and some guys up front. You've got 2 top 100 corners potentially. You've got your safeties. You go get that linebacker to be the QB of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he is such a massive get. Yes, Olesh. If I said something wrong, I'm sorry. My brain's cloudy. Yes, Olesh was at Penn State this weekend, and he's been to every game possible. Dude, unlimited officials, go to every game you can, dude. Whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm incredibly optimistic, and I still, not to hedge, okay, but even if all of these don't go the way you want, and that means Bryce Underwood, even if Bryce Underwood doesn't flip, being in these recruitments, and it's not dropping bags either. People are like, oh, I don't really like this, getting into this. It's kind of, no. What changed in Michigan, even from Ward down, the house case, man, this stuff is legit now. There's more clear path here, right? And the revenue share in Michigan has a potential to be able to offer the great education, the network, the massive history football program, everything, plus fair, adequate, legitimate NIL, right? You flipped Shamari Earls from Georgia, dude. That's a big deal. That's not a guy they weren't going to keep necessarily, or was it taken? Maybe he wasn't. They wanted Shamari Earls. That's a big deal, right? And threatening LSU for a quarterback, whether he's from Michigan or not, I don't know that matters that much to him, honestly. The activity is good, and I think it's going to translate into the portal too. I think they're going to be very active in the portal, and the one benefit of this year sucking is you're going to have a leg up on some of these playoff teams that you were in the exact opposite position last year, right?
Yeah, the shoes on the other foot here this year for sure.
Yeah.
I want to bring up what Darren Talks Ball here says. How much of this is on the investment they made in expanding the recruiting party? I mean, that's a big part of it too. You're starting to see the fruits of that paying off. They expanded their recruiting department. They expanded their scouting department. So that's kind of why you're seeing a lot of these kids that you may not have necessarily heard before, like a Jillian's from Syracuse, who they're likely going to flip. Is because they have more resources. So now the coaches aren't stretched thin on visits, can prioritize kids. It's kind of why this weekend, I mean, going back to Owusu Boateng, he was on a 2-day unofficial visit, just left like this evening, tonight on Sunday.
Like a few hours ago.
Arrived Saturday, or maybe even arrived Friday, but yeah, like this is, you've had Sharon basically tailing the kid all weekend. And they can allow to do that now because they have so much more resources to use in the recruiting department. They have people, they have bodies, they have good recruiters in their own regard, on the staff and on the recruiting staff. So, that's a lot of it too. The embracing the NIL is part of it. Everyone working together with the NIL is part of it. And I don't want to leave out Dusty May out of this conversation as well, because he's been a big part of working on this NIL structure for his own, dealings in basketball too. So it's kind of like a two-headed monster, well, three-headed monster, really, I'd say, with you can technically even say four, with the collectives, Sharon, Sean McGee, the GM, and Dusty all working together to get this moving forward. And obviously Ward Manuel too. And a lot of people might be throwing up in their mouths because I said Ward Manuel here, but,
in a positive light. How dare you?
Yeah, I know. How dare I? But it's all part of it too. I mean, I
do think the house case and everything there was not only like a door opening for him, but a wake up call as well, because I have $50 million in revenue share.
Yeah.
And football needs to be good for that to happen. Right.
I also think the Michigan suddenly getting back into it with Owusu Boateng in the summer probably was everything hiding in plain sight in terms of Michigan getting serious about NIL. And, people are now kind of opening their eyes a little bit because of Underwood, but I think it's been there the whole time. They got into it with Owusu Boateng, and like just out of the blue, he visited, and then bam, all of a sudden now Michigan's right in it. You flipped Ivan Taylor from Notre Dame, like historically the past couple years, a really good NIL program, and you've for the most part held on to Olesh. You reeled in Babalola. I think the NIL improvements were kind of hiding in plain sight where people were complaining about it, but realistically, behind closed doors, major progress is being made. And now look at with Bryce, it's just kind of putting a nice little neat bow on it, saying, hey, we've got everyone working together towards one goal now. We're not, fractured in whatever. Everyone's kind of synced in being in sync with what they need to do to be successful, to maintain success, and to bring in talent. They're not paying guys, they're not just dropping a bag off and being like, hey, Here you go. It's like, it's this with Bryce's deal in particular, it's over 3 to 4 years. It's not on signing, you're going to get all this money. It's over 3 to 4 years. You're getting this money. You're obviously going to have to contractually deal with that stuff.
It's professional, man.
Right. It is. It's very much turning into a business, and you can kind of
say anyway.
You can kind of say the same thing about the Carter Smith decommitment. It's that it's a business. It's no offense to the kid that Michigan wants to try to find something that could immediately help the program now. It's no offense to the kid. It's no offense to the family. Great kid. I've got nothing bad to say about him, but it's a business.
I heard it
both
too.
sides. It's a business for the coaching staff to keep their job because they want to be good. They want to win so they can keep their job and make more money. And these kids want to make money and, make the best decisions for their own professional goals beyond the collegiate game. So, Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is very much a business. It's unfortunate that college athletics has turned into this, but without the NCAA and without any sort of structure, this is what you're getting, and now you're retroactively getting structure. The toothpaste is way out of the tube at this point. There's no putting it back. There's no going back. Look, I think personally, I think Michigan played it right. I think Michigan played this whole NIL thing the right way. Maybe did it sacrifice the short term? Excuse me. Yes, I do. I'm just losing my voice now. I just lost my voice.
Literally?
Go ahead, Trevor. Yep. I just lost my voice.
I don't think I've ever seen that happen to somebody.
Well, I've been sick all week, and now I've just lost my voice.
That is crazy.
That's something. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I don't completely disagree with you about like the unfortunate piece of this, but there is another angle of this, which is schools and everyone else has been making millions and billions of dollars off of these players, and them getting a fair piece of it, I don't have a problem with. And their schools have been paying kids since the 80s. I prefer that it's out front at this point and more legitimate. And I think people will be less taken advantage of as well. And I think that's a big part of what changed for Michigan too. I know everybody scoffed at the Altius thing and bringing in the NIL GM, but it's nice to be able to say, if you're Sharon Moore or a quarterback coach or whatever else, like, here's the expert, right? Like that's part of the reason the pitch is better too. You just have people that are coordinating these businesses and these relationships. You're finding people that can benefit from having a relationship with these players and vice versa. It's just people connecting and not asking football coaches to be finance managers, right? And letting the collective, now supported by the university, do their thing within their lanes that is beneficial to the university and within it. And we know people were coming to Ward for a bit saying, hey, I want to help with this NIL thing, but I don't know how. Right now we have clear answers for that. Like a lot of those pieces being put in place too. And in terms of what you just said, you said it a couple times, maybe split up, but Sean McGee, having a general manager in terms of the roster who can adapt probably to what's been happening this season and now change the team's pursuit in terms of recruits in the portal, right? That's a big deal. And I think Michigan, and again, props to Moore. That's what he said he was going to do. And those are the pieces he needed to put in place. And I think some people have asked me, do you think maybe he was doing too much work on that? And that's part of the negative of what's happened on the field. I don't know. And I'm not going to guess on that because I don't know what Moore does with all of his time. But I could see that being potential. And I'm fine with that, honestly. Right. And I do think, fair or not, and I was one of these people. I mean, I'm not trying to blame others, but looking back, the continuity thing and what we were asking of him was not fair. Like no other head coach gets that, right? Hey, be just like the other guy, the one taking your coaches away from you. Right. And I know he still has a good relationship with Jim, and I don't blame Jim for doing what he did. I don't have a problem with anybody, but I think in a weird way, this year not going as planned on the field has allowed Sharon Moore now to be Sharon Moore. And he earned this job, some people don't think he did. He earned this job. And if he fails and doesn't succeed and is let go, I will actually feel better now because it'll be because of him. It won't be because he didn't get to be Jim Harbaugh. Right? I think that's the one good thing is now this gets to be his program and the way he wants to do it. And you can still keep, some of the good culture pieces and things like that, but I don't think he has to pretend to be anybody else anymore. And again, no more excuses, right? Wonder how many times he's tried to get
interesting. I think this is a really interesting.
Put it down really fast.
I got my voice back finally.
Hey, my voice.
I think this is a really interesting question. Obviously, this is speculation, and it's not like it's a speculative answer, and we'll have to give speculative answers in return. But I think that's also a possibility too, that Harbaugh was a bit stubborn. Well, not possible. I know for a fact Harbaugh was a bit stubborn with NIL, but I think
he wanted his players to get paid, but that doesn't mean he wanted to go have the conversations in the cigar rooms and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yes. So let me put it this way. Sharon is willing to, I guess, shake hands, hug babies, take photos he's willing to do the dirty work to get the money. Whereas and this is not to say that Harbaugh is lazy or anything like that. I think Harbaugh was very clear that he kind of just didn't want to do the crap work, the support, the go to these events and all this kind of stuff to drum up money. And that's fine. I mean, hey, look, he did it his way, and guess what? Michigan won a national championship. I'm not dogging that at all. His way was very, very successful, and that's totally fine. But
the landscape of college football changed so much.
But Sharon Moore is not Jim Harbaugh, and Sharon Moore has got to do it his own way. And he identified a route where, hey, I can drum up more NIL support here, and I can get things kind of more in sync in terms of NIL support by doing this and going into the weeds, doing the dirty work. And that goes with the recruiting department too. I mean, Michigan's recruiting department under Jim Harbaugh wasn't exactly the most organized and heavily manned department as it could have been. Now look what happens.
The violations.
Well, the violations are indeed part of it. Yes, that's part of it. But yeah,
if we're being honest,
there was a lot of things that Sharon, I would say, had to do this offseason that he won't have to do this offseason.
That's a good point.
He won't have to work hard to build up a whole new department. He doesn't have to, build out his support staff with the Sean McGee and everyone else surrounding that. He doesn't have to work overtime to drum up the NIL support. Everyone's swimming in the same lane and in the same direction. He doesn't have to worry about that part now. I mean, he's got the areas where, he'll go and be like, hey, I need such and such, that he can do that now. Now he can focus on keeping his players, and adding talent out of the portal and assessing his coaching staff. And he's going to make changes. Again, as I said, he's not dumb. There's plenty of opportunities for new players to come in. And there's changes that he has to make. He has to get these changes correct, though. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
He cannot afford another, next year he's going to have to hire all new guys. He can't afford to do that. You may have to do one or two next year out of necessity, but I mean, it is a bit unfair kind of comparing this staff to last year's staff, because you look at last year's staff, that is just an elite collection of coaches.
And it took 7 years to build it.
Right.
Can we stop pretending Jim Harbaugh did not have years where they weren't winning tough games and did not have staff issues? Right? The flip in 2021 was so much about the changes and the people he brought in and getting that right. He had a choice one year with Tim Drevno and Jed Fish, and he took Drevno, right? Like there were moments. Now Harbaugh had something more didn't, which is benefit of the doubt because of a pattern of success, which is why 2021 was arguably Harbaugh's third chance. Yeah. Moore's going to get one. He's going to get this 1 3-year, maybe 4-year window. He's not going to get multiple chances to reset. So I agree with that.
And Harbaugh had a much larger Rolodex to work with.
Yeah, but
now compared to
people have been saying Link's buyout is too high to fire. Do you think that's true? If you're with these NIL numbers I'm hearing, no.
Yeah, right.
It better not be.
If they're thinking that like $2 to $3 million is too high to pay,
it'd be 5.
Well, how many
2 years?
He signed a 2-year deal, right?
He signed a 3-year deal, so he's got 2 years left.
$5 million. That's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I think it's two. I think he goes 2.5 and 2.7, something like that. It'd be a little over $5 million.
Yeah. I don't know who's. I don't know. That's ridiculous.
And-
if they're worried about it, yeah. Michigan's coaching.
I know
budget
people
is
don't believe this, but it's true how we did it again. Go ahead.
Yeah, Michigan's coaching budget is unlimited. Exactly, 4 to 5 million is like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
They'll spend 4 million to pay a defensive coordinator probably like 5 million if it's a really really good one. You know, it's like
he's the second highest paid coordinator right now. So like, I don't understand. That's not. Yeah.
I don't understand that argument.
And I'm not saying he will or has to. I don't like doing that. These are real people. I'm not saying he will or has to, right? Like, I don't know what the exact changes are that need to be made. I've talked about the secondary. That was kind of a light bulb moment for me. I mean, maybe it is adding a safety coach instead of having Lamar Morgan doing everything. I don't know. And I don't know, but something's got to be different. That's pretty clear, right? We've talked about that.
Yeah.
And if the people in there don't realize that, I don't know. And again, it's not me. It's not me versus you. It's not beat writers, reporters, none of that. That's not who you're held to. It's your peers.
Yeah.
You know, it's you have an expectation making what you make and in the position you have at Michigan. And players have that as well. You know, players we've seen this year. How many times have guys won jobs and lost jobs in practice and been benched during the game and swap? Coaches should have a higher standard of that in this new world, right? And you bolt if a better opportunity comes, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think money is going to be an issue at all when it comes to the buyout stuff. I guess that's the answer to that question. But
yeah, that would be insane.
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah,
like
again,
$4 million is a barrier, but you're gonna pay him $4 million anyway. It's like throughout the length of the contract.
That part, yeah, and I know the extra money comes with the new DC, but still, yeah, that's always killed me. Like you're gonna pay him anyway, right? Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
But yeah, so look, I like where Michigan is. I've resided myself to the season is what it is, and I think we'll be able to at the end of the year, I think it'll be a lot easier to talk about, you know, where the fork in the roads were, where they are now, and that kind of thing. I mean, I do think that I want to know the difference between the coaches. Like when I've had people say to me, like, you guys lied, basically, right? We said this was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I don't say that stuff unless somebody else is telling me, and it's somebody that has legitimate reasons to say that thing, whether it's a practice observer or somebody close to the team, you know, whatever. Like, I'm not going to hype you and tell you like this is what's going to happen, and it's just pure. Like I've done it on this show where I've said, look, this is me guessing, opinion versus, you know, informed, right? Where the coach is trying to hype the players up with some of the things they were saying this offseason. Did they not know? That's my biggest red flag right now is the talent evaluation, the back and forth we've seen with some of these positions and them not knowing who the best player was, right? That might be my concern. Like, did you actually think this team was better than it was, or why did it kind of become an issue, right? And why were some guys hyped and now they can't get on the field? Why is Fred Moore not getting snaps? Why, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff I really want to know at the end of the year. And I think it'll be easier to do the autopsy thing. But yeah, that's the one I had in my mind, Ed, your average fan, the bigger Devin Bush. When I tell you I had a former player who you all respect, I promise you, a former player you all respect who played with Devin Bush tell me that, and Grant Newsome said it at a press conference, and I can't remember who else. I don't remember if it was Jansen or whatever. Like, that was a consensus thing that was being said. You know, like that's not the regular hype machine thing where it's like, and that's a guy that played football for 2 years at Maryland. We saw his tape, you know, so I think he's had 2 to 3 really good weeks. I do hope he comes back, and I hope he plays edge. Janet says hi, Josh.
That's my mom. Hi, Mom.
I'm good stuff. All right. Man, I'm overwhelmed. Hour 40. Damn. We basically did 2 shows, so that's all right. Okay. So like I said before Brock got off, if you guys weren't here, which a lot of you were, actually, that's our highest viewership in a long time. That's impressive. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, and of course, as always, being a part of the conversation. I hope you feel like you're a part of the conversation. I hope you feel like we're talking with you and not at you. That has always been our goal on these podcasts. And always hold on. I got ADD, man. Trevor, do you remember me flipping out in the chat over that Devin Bush comparison I said they are nuts? I don't, but you were right. I appreciate you. Sorry.
Way to like brush that comment off.
I don't mean in a bad way. I don't remember. Yeah, there's a 100% chance we're going live if Underwood flips.
Oh no, you know what? If Underwood flips, we're not even going to do a story on it. We're just going to totally ignore it and pretend it didn't happen.
Stop.
No, I'm just not being. I'm just being a smart ass. But anyway.
But yeah,
we're just not even going to acknowledge it. We're just going to be like, man,
who?
Yeah, who's that? Who's Underwood?
Let me know when he plays. Let me know when he signs.
Bruce Underwood? Who's that?
It's the guy was on Home Improvement with Tim Allen, wasn't he?
Isn't that the Illinois basketball coach? Brad Underwood?
Thank you. I couldn't think of his real first name after you said that.
Yeah.
Ugh, gross. Anyway, yeah, viewership, awesome. You guys staying in here. Like I said, I hope you feel that way. And our subscribers.
Yeah, exactly.
Our subscribers that are in the den.
Underwood.
I hope you feel the same way as well in terms of the way we converse and share this information. So yeah, if you're listening back on podcasts, you want to be a part of the conversation, you want to be live with us, make sure you're liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel, notification bells for when we do go live. And of course, I know I say it all the time, 60-70% about what we talked about was on the site. A lot of times that's true. So yeah, again, michigan.rivals.com. You can be in the message board community. A lot of fun conversation happens in there. It's not all Michigan. It's a really good community over there that has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with the people that are already there. And again, you can use promo code BLUE30 to get the first 30 days free if you want to give us that trial shot. And then of course, access to premium content. I have my stock report data and film cut up. Cutting up the film for this game was miserable. My God. But I have the clips cut up and ready to go. So that will be posted this week as well. And yeah, hey, we're getting into it. I know we're not going to have the fun football playoff conversations and stuff we had last year, but recruiting is picking up, basketball starting, hockey with 2 big wins this weekend, no split. That was pretty sweet to see as well.
No,
so,
those are really 2 really good wins.
Yes.
They got some good young players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still bummed about Rutger. I guess I should have known. Once the trade rumors were out there, and it was like, oh, him not signing with Winnipeg is because he just doesn't want to play for Winnipeg. I was like, crap. And then he got through the deadline and through the summer, and then I think Pittsburgh had him up for like 2 games and then sent him down anyway. That pisses me off.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me so mad. But anyway, he probably knew that was the plan. He just wanted to get paid. Fair.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yep.
Don't blame him. All
right. So barring a Bryce Underwood emergency podcast, that'd be pretty sweet.
I would be surprised if that's not our most viewed podcast if that happened.
No.
That flip happened.
Yeah. Barring that, we will be.
Or shall I say when it happens? Whoa, mystery. Whoa.
Okay, that's it.
I'm just kidding.
Nope.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm gonna cut the clip. Ready? Today. Yes or no? Bryce Underwood, Michigan.
Today, if it happens today?
No.
Yeah. I know.
Your prediction with all the information you have right now. I know you said 65 earlier.
Yes. I say yes.
I say yes too.
At this point, I'm basically just waiting for the go ahead to post the story.
I'm gonna lose my mind, David, if you get this right. 8:00 Tuesday night. That'd be pretty sick. I do wonder if his high school season has to end. That was kind of something we had heard for a while.
I believe it, but the way Belleville's playing, he's gonna be playing for a while.
Thanksgiving weekend, yeah.
I mean, the good news about all of this, not to dive back too deep into this thing.
That's my bad. What, Darnell?
I think Darnell's just reacted to me saying it's gonna happen. I don't know. Anyway, the good news is that Bryce is a early enrollee, so this isn't going to be dragged out process to February.
Oh God, the election's Tuesday. Oh God.
So Yeah, I don't know what is going on.
Darbo and Darnell are trolling
Darbo?
us. What's going on right now? Yeah.
Anyway, so this thing should be done. Really, it's got to be done this month. If you think about it, it's got to be done this month.
Yeah, because he's going to enroll early.
I mean, weeks. It's got to be done here in like a couple weeks. So that's the good news. So
I
it's
only
not gonna
wonder
be a
if
draw.
with how public it got, I think that's the only thing that might push it up early.
Yeah. So it's a negative that it got out like as it did, but it's also a positive because it puts the pressure, it puts the onus on him to
Just to
either
be clear, you're not saying negative like it impacts the recruitment.
No, it doesn't impact the recruitment. It just puts pressure on him because it's public now.
I do think the amount of conversation around specific dollar amounts does bother me a little bit.
I'm not even gonna get into that. I never talk dollar figures
until they're literally professionals and there's like a salary cap.
Yeah, right.
So like they're signing something that has to be public. I think it's so weird. Is it 5 million? Is it 6? Is it 7? How much? One, it's almost always less than what people are saying. And two, who cares? It's so weird to me.
I hate that. I mean, that's the thing. People always like to pocket watch other people. So now it's just going to happen with college players now with this NIL stuff. But yeah, I never deal with the dollars and cents side of things because A, the money is almost always never accurate.
Exactly.
And B, it's none of my business how much these kids are getting paid. Right. So I don't care.
And they're kids.
Right. I don't give a shit. So there you go.
I care if he comes to Michigan.
Right. That's the only thing that matters.
Is whether he's flying around, and I keep randomly seeing him on the screen, and it's pissing me off. Where'd he go? All right. That's my sign. Was there a Circuit City in here somewhere? Circuit City reference?
I know Derek mentioned a Circuit City. What is the update on Dotson? I do think Dotson flips sooner rather than later. I think.
And yes, that means Bryce Underwood's coming. That's what Josh said earlier.
Yeah, totally. That's what I totally said. I'm gonna have a clickbait article coming out here in about half an hour. What I'm hearing, what's going to happen on Bryce Underwood. That's the title of it, and it's just going to be blank. It's going to be a blank article.
Or can it just be regurgitated
with
differently?
Yeah, everyone's going to get rickrolled.
I got rickrolled today. That's funny you just said that.
Yeah.
Like a legitimate rickroll.
Yep.
It was one of those like ASMR videos where like I don't remember exactly what it was, but like something was happening slowly and it was going to be like cool. And then right before the cool thing happened, rickroll. And I'm like, what? I haven't legitimately been rickrolled in like 15 years. I was sad and happy at the same time.
Yeah, we got it all figured out. You're getting the inside baseball here, folks, about what I'm going to do with my Bryce Underwood intel from here on out. Clickbait the shit out of it. Here we go, baby.
Yep. And I'll tell you what,
it has zero impact on anything.
And when we get that $3 from all the clicks we get from our forum hit, remember that conversation?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
The amount of money people think we make off of like posting a forum is hilarious to me.
Like, right. Yeah. Breaking news. Bryce Underwood to Michigan. Trust me, bro.
Undoubted. What's his picture? What is that?
Trust me, bro.
What's happening there?
Is it a tractor? I can't tell what that is.
Old bike. Old bike?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, Dave.
That'd be a fun game. Guess the PFP.
Oh, God. I don't know. There's a couple of them in there.
Lowercase d.
Yeah. I'm going to post something on.
Go ahead. Here's the bike. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm going to post something on the thing. It's going to be completely different than what the headline suggests. Not even going to mention Bryce Underwood.
Yeah. YouTube makes you millionaires, right? Check out the wood paneling, brother.
Yeah.
That's millionaire if you haven't ever seen it. I'm tired. All right, we're going to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Michigan.
We've already gotten clipped too many times now already. So.
Oh, damn it. Is that a secret message regarding Underwood with the rickrolling of full commitments? But I'm thinking, no.
I don't think Underwood and Campbell are tied anymore at all. I think this is a Sharon and Underwood together thing. This isn't a Campbell thing. I don't think he's involved that much. I honestly, to be 100% transparent and honest with you, I haven't heard Campbell's name mentioned once.
Yeah.
In this
No,
thing.
well, let's be honest. I think they like him, but you think they like what they've seen this year?
Sharon's doing the heavy. Sharon and Sean McGee are doing the heavy lifting here with the family, with Bryce. The family's all in on Sharon, so that's a good thing. They got that in their corner. But ultimately, this is Bryce's decision to make.
Okay. Michigan.rivals.com. Please subscribe. Get in the den. Premium content. Blue 30 promo code. It's on the bottom. Follow us on Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter forever. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I forgot Election Tuesday. No more ads. Thank you.
Yeah, that was God. It's just gotten so bad.
Well, all the local ones started hitting now too. It's not just like the big. It's every an ad for garbage collector today. I'm sick of it.
Yeah,
never gonna give you up either, Don.
That's what happens when you live in a swing state.
Yeah, we need to move to non-swingy state. I don't know, whatever. All right, we will be back.
Trevor's moving to a swinger state. Here we go. We're hearing it live. Swinger state. Trevor, I don't know. Maybe that's a Florida. It sounds like a Florida. Trevor be a new Florida man.
I could not be a Florida man. I could not. Too many lizards running around. I had to work in Orlando for a month. I hated it. I was miserable. I don't understand why people live there. Sorry if you live there.
Apologies to our Orlando listeners here that just got their towns completely shat on by Trevor, but that's okay.
There's gonna be one guy from Orlando that
hey,
that's not cool, man.
I've lived your whole life.
We got the magic. We went too far. We're deep in the delusional phase now.
Yep.
Okay.
He's coming off.
Michigan Rivals. Like and subscribe, notification bell. We'll be back next week. Hail to the podcast.